Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. This meeting of the Linear Lake subdivision is now called into session.
Okay, thanks. We do have an agenda for this evening, and one of the first thing that I'd like to cover off is Community Watch. We have not had a Community Watch meeting since April, but I think Community Watch is serving its purpose in that we have not had the breaking and entering of cars like we had, and that was the reason that Community Watch was formed. So it has served its purpose well, but I have been the coordinator for Community Watch for 3 years, and I am going to resign that position tonight. So if there's anyone who would like to pick up that gauntlet and press on, please see me after the meeting. Okay? And then the next up is Sharon Horton.
We need to address the fact that we're at peak capacity here, so we're thinking maybe if somebody knows of another venue where we could meet that would, I would say, up to 200 people. If somebody knows of a place, just let me know after the meeting and we'll check into it. The only place I had a chance to talk to is Mount Zion Baptist Church. They charge $100 the first hour. We have our gas. So that won't be. So a couple other options. But like I said, if anybody knows of a place, just let me know and we'll check into it.
And if you happen to go to church within the community that has a fellowship hall that we might be able to meet in, please get with Sharon after the meeting and let us know. She'll go through the criteria with you and we can proceed from there. But, you know, based on tonight, we are at maximum. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is the results of the attorney research. We all agreed last Monday night that we would contact 3 attorneys. Charles Brinkley and Brinkley is Adams Homes attorney, so that firm conflicts out. We want someone to represent us, not to keep Adams Homes in the back of their mind. Suzanne Dorsett of Wilmer and Lee, there was no response there. Adam Darrow of Heard Erie did respond, and he is here tonight. And Randall Perry, attorney at law, there was no response there. So, and let me just give you a little information about Adam. He graduated cum laude from Samford University in 2006. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science with honors. He has a JD from University of Alabama School of Law, 2009. Served as a founding member of the Alabama Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Law Review while at University of Alabama School of Law. And he currently serves as the treasurer of the Huntsville-Madison County Bar Association. His areas of practice are bankruptcy, homeowners association law, commercial litigation, general corporate law, landlord and tenant law, construction law, general civil litigation, wills and estates. So just to recap, for how many of you were not here last Monday night? Okay, so we're going to do a little recap of what we talked about last Monday night. So we have known issues, unknown issues, we have general concerns regarding our declarations, and then there are other questions. So, and let's just hold all questions until we speak to our attorney and he can speak to those things. The known issues are all homes in Linear Lakes have varying declarations of protective covenants. We've got Breland homeowners, we have Adams homeowners. Some have declarations from Adams Homes and some do or maybe don't. The declarations for Adams Homes of Alabama LLC were not formed correctly in that there are declarations, there are no bylaws, we are not formally formed with the state of Alabama. The unknown issues are Are there any existing liens, encumbrances, debts incurred by Adams Homes on behalf of Lanier Lakes that could possibly be passed on to us? I know there's a lot of people in this room who have a great distrust for Adams Homes, so that would be a question certainly worth asking. Who owns the lake since the registered owner of Plainsman Development LLC was dissolved in September of 2014? You don't know. What is our liability where the lake and the wetlands are concerned? Once we find out who the owner is, we'll be a little more clear on that, but what's our responsibility? What are our total liabilities that come with the responsibility of our common areas? So if someone hurts themselves, if they run into one of the stone piers at the entranceway and they have a wreck, then what is our liability? General concerns about the declarations. Most homeowners possess Adams Homes declarations. One Breland homeowner was given Adams Homes declarations. One Breland homeowner was given Town Lakes Phase 2A Homeowners Association, Inc. One Breland homeowner was given Triana Investments, LLC. And one homeowner who purchased a pre-owned home was told by their realtor that Lanier Lakes was not an HOA community. So, who knows? And then other questions. What are the common areas? We know what Adams has been doing to date, but what is our responsibility? So we need a clear understanding of what our common areas are and what we should maintain. How do we indemnify our common areas to prevent lawsuits? So the lake, if it does become ours, what should we do? Should we post a sign that says, swim at your own risk, or absolutely no fishing, absolutely no swimming, any of that? But we need to indemnify ourselves. We need to at least post that warning. And then after the declarant status is changed from Adams Homes to the homeowners, then what are the steps to move forward? And these are all questions to ask our attorney. So, and I'm going to leave this for just a few more minutes. So, we had said that we were going to vote on an attorney. It should be pretty clear that we only have one choice, and he is here tonight. So, but with no other attorneys responding, it makes the choice very easy. And I think Adam, from my perspective and from others that I have spoken to, they speak very highly of Adam and the work that he does. So I think we would be very well represented by Adam, but as promised, we do need to take a vote. I'll turn to you.
So, I'll explain how the voting works, if we are going to do an actual physical vote. I'll have to answer your questions in a minute. So, general rule of quorum, if 51% cannot be met, the general rule of quorum drops down to 25%, which we pretty much have that. I'd have to actually take a count. And then it would be one vote per household. And that's as much as I'm going to go into that. Secondly, can we turn all our cell phones on vibrate or off? It's just common courtesy.
That's it.
And
No, not yet.
okay, and then
No, Stephen is after. Stephen is after. Yeah. Okay. So
he's got to actually do his part, and then we have to. We can't do it blind.
okay. All right.
Sure. You just want me to introduce myself or actually go into the answers?
I would introduce yourself first,
Oh, okay.
and then
Well,
go into your stuff.
Kathy probably introduced me better than I could, so thank you very much, Kathy. Like she said, I do a lot of HOA work. I represent many HOAs in Madison, Athens, and Huntsville. Okay. I represent a lot of homeowners associations in Madison, Athens, and Huntsville. I've dealt with this exact situation before. Although I think your situation is a little easier than the one I had, so I think we'll be able to get through it a little more smoothly than my last client that dealt with the situation. You have a lot of issues that we need to address in the HOA, and my job as your attorney at this point, it's going to shift a little bit. Right now, this group of people here is not the HOA. This group of people is a group of concerned homeowners that are interested in making sure the transition to HOA control goes smoothly. So that would be my representation at first, to make sure that happens properly. Then I would shift to representing the HOA as soon as the members become in control. As you know, at this point, Adams Homes is currently in control of the association, but I've already been in communication with Adams Homes' attorney, and as far as I know, they're on board and ready to move forward with the transition and fix all the problems we have with our documents. So I don't know if y'all want to vote right now, and afterwards I can explain exactly what's going on and what we need to do.
After.
Question.
Let's,
Retainer.
can we just hold those kinds of questions?
No, this is
Okay, hold on, we are going into a Q&A session right now, correct?
no, he was just asking a specific question regarding the retainer, which would be important to know regarding the vote. Yeah, okay. My hourly rate is $150 an hour. I bill by the 10th of the hour. Majority of what I do for homeowners associations or collections work, that process is very streamlined. I do that at a flat rate. I'll explain the collections process later if you like, but the process involves letters and filed documents. I charge 0.3 of an hour for any letter and 0.5 of an hour for a filed document, plus court costs, which are usually about $25. Retainer for this initial representation of just the group, I'll take a $600 retainer, and I'll bill against that. I don't think I'm going to go over that because I think my work here is going to be very limited. For the creation of the corporation, which is going to happen, I charge a flat fee of $800, which includes all filing fees with the Secretary of State and the Judge of Probate. Afterwards, based on, I normally don't take retainers in HOA, I'm usually just here for as needed, but because we're in this very unique situation where a lot of upfront work is going to be required, I'm going to take a retainer of $1,500 for the HOA itself. I'm not going to keep that in trust. I will bill against that for the upfront costs.
So, if I understand it then correctly, the initial upfront cost that's going to be dispersed among the households is it $1,500? Is that going to be
the initial upfront cost will be $600 plus $800.
600, 800, and then 1,500 after that. Correct. As a retainer for in perpetuity to be drawn on as called.
As needed, but I anticipate the upfront costs will be more substantial than what you're probably going to be used to in a normal HOA, because we have a lot of work to do setting up your corporation and making sure you run properly.
Okay, for me it's all new because I've never been involved in HOA, so we're just going from square one.
Yeah.
So we're talking $1,400 right up front, and then at some point in the future, $1,500 payout to you.
Correct.
Retainer to you for possible future work.
Yeah, and I send monthly bills, and so y'all will have
okay.
normal bills.
Okay.
Bob Bushlow, 304 Summer Cove Circle. I was just thinking, it's only been a week to allow others, no offense, but shouldn't we allow an appropriate time for others to respond so that we can have a proper vote and a number of candidates rather than just one?
No.
Well, we can actually put this to a vote. Would you like to make that into a motion?
Yes, I
All right.
move that we give a 3-week period for the others to respond.
Well, when is the meeting with Adams?
We don't have a meeting with Adams.
If someone would like to second that, is there a second?
I would like to discuss first.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we discuss this before we vote.
Would you like to limit the time of
I
discussion?
would like to limit the time to no less than 5 minutes.
All right, is there a second for that
A
motion
second.
specifically?
A
All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any
Okay.
abstentions? Motion passage, you have the floor for 5
Okay,
minutes.
one thing, I know that a lot of people, if I get this, if I understand this correctly, is that we don't have time. because they have to be out at a certain time, and Adams Homes will take priority and move forward themselves. Now, is that correct?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
exactly.
and this is going to take some time to get all of these, like the addresses, the tax assessor's office, it's gonna take all the time. And, I just feel like we need to move. We need to move forward, and I don't think that we're gonna do, if somebody has another suggestion, because the other two lawyers didn't even take it. Did they send any information or anything? No. So, that's my reasoning for moving forward. Because number one, Adams Home said we only had a limited amount of time at the first meeting. And I think that all the homeowners here, they have been given letters. They've known about this now for what, 3 weeks or more? Well, actually more than that, probably 7 weeks by this time you count their first letter that came in. So they know this. They've had an opportunity to call anybody, and if my understanding, these people who's on this committee here that formed, that they have actually gone and talked to people individually in their homes. So I say that we move forward tonight. Thank you.
Is there another question? We're still under the 5-minute period.
I'm all for the lawyer, and I said that a week ago, but I still have a problem with people that are absent from this meeting and not voting. This is not a homeowners association. It's a group of concerned people. That's what the lawyer said. So the question to him is, how are we going to legally get money from them to pay their share?
We have one homeowner who has anonymously given up to $2,000 to retain this attorney. So.
That didn't answer my question.
Okay, so then after that, then Adam will speak to how it will be assessed to the homeowners, and it would not be the normal assessment of $150 or whatever the prorated amount would be. It would be under a special assessment for this purpose only. And he can speak to that a little bit later. But let me just go back and say, the reason we need to move on this now is Adams can at any time go ahead and institute a prorated assessment, hand us over to a management company, and then once the declarant status is changed, then there could be, maybe, some liens that come along with that. That's a chance I don't want to take. I would rather know that I'm paying $150 annually than looking over my shoulder and wondering if there's going to be a bill for $1,500 coming through.
Respectfully, I understand what you're saying, but it still does not answer the question. How are you going to get money from people that are not here to vote or don't want to vote because everybody's known about this for a while? That is the point. I agree with we need the lawyer. I agree we need to move forward. My question is one for the lawyer, I guess. Legally, how can you get money from them?
Exactly. That's why Adam is going to address that question a little bit later.
Why don't you say that?
Sir, you all want to address it right now?
Just that brief question. This is just an unincorporated association. The donor who's been willing to donate $2,000, that's more money that I need to get this initial representation done. So I'm not sure if that's an issue. The unincorporated association as a whole is an entity separate and apart from each one of you. That association, to the extent that I bill more money than that, which I do not think I will in this representation, the association would owe that itself. You individually would not, so it's up to y'all. And I mean, I was told by Kathy, y'all might even take donations, and that's perfectly fine. But this initial representation is going to be very limited. My primary representation is going to be after the HOA begins. That's when the real work's going to start.
You, sir, are all the way in the back.
I basically was going to say a special assessment. We have to notify everybody in the housing community that it's a special assessment to establish a homeowners association bylaws and all that. And I would think if we did that with letters to all of these homeowners, then they would understand why they're gonna have to come up with a minimal amount of money to establish the association.
Yeah, I believe it was you and then the lady over here.
I'll stand up this time.
Please announce your name.
That's it. I'm Jim Bodine, I live at 300 Summer Cove. Okay. Whoever made the donation, if you happen to be in the room tonight, thank you. You're fantastic. I'll only speak for me on this one. I don't pretend to say they or all of us or whatever. I'll speak for me. One, I am all in favor of retaining an attorney. I am all in favor of retaining this attorney because he responded and he's here, and having dealt with a few attorneys in my life, I will tell you right now, the dollar figures this young man has quoted us are extremely reasonable. At least for the $600 assessment, if we want to, I'll write a check tonight for part of it. I'll donate part of it and divide it equally among all of us. I don't care. So I think what I'm more interested in here when the young man gets a chance to speak to us is the way forward. What are the products we expect out of the initial assessment? What is out of the initial thing? What are the products we expect out of anything else? Because I'm concerned about all that might happen. And so that's really what I'm concerned about, is what can we expect as next steps?
And you were the last question, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was just concerned because I'm on fixed income, and before the gentleman asked about it, we didn't know that we had a donation. And are we gonna, when we have donation, are we gonna know about it? Or are we gonna just wait and see what's gonna happen? And then I was concerned because I didn't know how much money I was gonna have to come out of my pocket. And, about, getting a lawyer and everything for right now. But I'm glad to know that someone did that, but we didn't know, so you know, it would have been better, we come off the property and let us know.
All right, so I think we have to remember the original motion to actually vote on the lawyer report.
To vote, yeah.
All right, so time has passed and no one has extended it. So is there a motion? Well, it's already been seconded. Remember, each household only gets one vote, and I will have to count this. So all in favor of hiring Adam, please, all those in favor, raise your hand.
I got 67, actually
Awesome.
69.
Wonderful. All those opposed? Raise your hand if you want to vote against. You may. No one's going to hate you for it. Abstentions? Alright, so that motion passes. One abstention. The motion passes.
Congratulations, Adam. We have an agreement.
That's official.
Okay. All right.
Do you want to come up here and do the rest of your stuff?
I just finished.
And we will hold all questions off until, if that's the way you would want to do it, until the end of his presentation, because he'll probably answer several questions that you guys may have.
Can you rewind the first presentation?
First question page.
And he has the floor.
No issues, or is there one before this?
No, we had no issues. Okay, thank you.
All right.
First things first, the situation y'all are in is because Adams Homes, initially, the attorney did not file the articles of incorporation with the state. what the attorney did is he filed the articles of incorporation attached to the end of your declaration. This happens every now and then, and it is not sufficient. It doesn't work in creating a corporation. So as a homeowners association, your homeowners association is an unincorporated association. This is bad, and we need to get this fixed. The way we get this fixed is by incorporating you with the judge of probate and with the Secretary of State as a nonprofit entity. I've done this before. The problem, the headache that really comes from this is if the control of the HOA is already turned over to the homeowners, which gives the homeowners a lot of say in incorporation. The problem is, y'all have a very, very large HOA. It's hard to get enough people together to make a decision that large, while that decision still has to be done. So what we're going to be doing in order to streamline this process is I'm going to be drafting up these documents and sending them over to Adams Homes, getting Adams Homes to do it right. I've already been in contact with their attorney, and they're on board with this process. After the corporation is created, what I'm going to be doing is drafting up a document that affects the transfer of the control of the HOA from the corporation, Adams Homes, to you, the homeowners. Those are the first two steps that have to happen when we're moving forward in the process of creating an HOA. At that point, we begin, as an HOA, we have bylaws, we have a declaration, and we do what needs to be done. But the biggest thing that we have to do going forward is establishing corporate procedure. The most important thing to know about an HOA is it is a corporation, as formal as any other, and it needs to be run like a corporation. To the extent that the way things are being run here is very, very sophisticated, and it's very clear. It is actually a little more complex than a normal HOA meeting would be, and the bylaws will tell you exactly how that's going to run. And I can explain that, and I anticipate I'm going to be explaining that to the board you elect quite a bit when we figure out exactly how the documents need to be prepared, the resolutions need to be passed, the votes need to be handled. So we're going to be handling that as well. What you have in order to pay for the maintenance of your association are assessments. You have your general yearly assessments of $150. I think, from what Kathy has told me, that y'all have never paid an assessment before. Is that correct? Okay, that's crazy. I have no idea who let that slip, but that's a problem. We have different ways of dealing with this, but what we need to do is we need to realize we don't have any money to start up for startup costs. What that's going to require, I do not like prorated assessments. I don't think they're clean. Your assessments are supposed to be collected every October, correct? Yes. Okay. What I would recommend at the beginning of this process is issuing a special assessment of a certain, amount of money that the board can determine is enough to pay for the startup costs of the HOA. Those startup costs are going to include initial attorney's fees, and those startup costs are also going to include initial contract fees for negotiating with the grounds maintenance. I do not think that you're a very high impact HOA as far as your maintenance. You don't have a clubhouse, you don't have a pool. All you've got is a gazebo, some fences, some lakes to mow. That's pretty much it. I don't anticipate this being a very high cost HOA. And you are a high membership HOA, so those costs can be diffused. So I don't think it's going to be expensive to live here as far as HOA fees. If you don't mind, I guess you want to
we'll hold all questions off until the end of this presentation.
Okay. In order to maintain your property, the majority of what you're going to be doing to maintain your property is simply hiring a property management company and mowing the lawn. It's usually as simple as that. And so there's a lot of them that do work around here, and I'm sure y'all can figure out one that's going to be relatively cheap. Like I said before, procedure is also important. The biggest thing that I wanted to talk about that's sort of in the back of my mind is a problem that could arise is people not being subject to these declarations. And I know some people think that they might not be subject to these declarations because some people have gotten one set of declarations, some people have gotten to another set. I want to make sure everybody knows your being subject to these declarations of Lanier Lakes is not subject to what you received or what you were told. You are subject to these declarations because you purchased a piece of property, and that's the final say. So the declaration is in the public record, and that's the way HOAs work. So I know some people got the wrong declaration for a subdivision that's all the way across Madison. I don't know what happened there, but hopefully we should get any confusion fixed. So let me answer some of these questions to the extent that I can. Varying declarations of protective covenants, just like I said. There is only one real binding protective covenant, and that is Lanier Lakes, and we have that. The declarations, I think that probably means the declarations for your HOA were not formed correctly. We've already handled that issue. We're going to get it fixed. We have no bylaws. We've handled that issue. We're going to get that fixed. We're not legally filed, so let's move on to the next. Are there liens, encumbrances, debts incurred by Adam Home? Adam Homes has the ability to incur debts that the HOA has to pay for. I'll check on that. I can search the public records, but I do not know that right now because I have not made a search of the public records. What I'll do is I'll look for lawsuits, I'll look for liens, mortgages, things like that, to see if Adams Homes has encumbered the property. I severely doubt they have. There's not any type of cost that the HOA would have incurred, like say if you built a pool or a clubhouse. Who owns the lake? That is a situation that almost all of my clients have. What happens is the declarant sets up this property, owns the common area in some holding company, passes on to the HOA, the declarant goes away, dissolves, moves on to somewhere else, and that property literally sits in that holding company, which may be non-viable for the rest of the existence of the HOA. It is not a problem. It's not the way I would do it if I were handling the process. I would rather it be transferred to the HOA, and that's what it's supposed to do. I can talk to Adams Homes about that, but what you should know about this is regardless of who owns the HOA itself is responsible for it. So it does not matter that Plainsman, who could not even be a viable entity anymore, owns that lake. The HOA is responsible for it. The HOA has to maintain insurance on it, just because that's what the declarations say. So you also don't need to worry about somebody up and selling that lake out from under the HOA because it is unmarketable. A piece of property like a lake, common area, that is subject to a declaration of protected covenants is absolutely unmarketable. I've dealt with this many times before. It's just something, nobody's going to buy it because they know that they buy no rights because the HOA has all the rights of that property, even though they don't own it. Liability regarding the lake and the wetlands. Your liability, your responsibility as an HOA is to maintain that property, one, in an aesthetic way, because that's your responsibility to the homeowners, and two, in a way that is safe. Safe is a very vague word, but usually it means a reasonable person can foresee that there is a danger. But as far as that lake's concerned, it's a huge lake. Everybody recognizes that you see a lake, you could drown in that lake. There's lots of cases in Alabama about people owning lakes, people owning pools. It is very, very protected. However, that does not mean that you don't need to maintain liability insurance. Your declarations are going to require you to maintain liability insurance on the property. That's going to be one of your upfront costs as well. So we're going to get that set up as soon as we get the HOA transferred over, and that'll be in there for perpetuity. Similarly, total liabilities come with responsibility for the common areas, just like anything else. Maintain your liability insurance, make it aesthetic, make it safe. All right. We've already talked about that first one, Adams Homes of Alabama LLC declarations, that Breland declarations, Town Lake, Breland Home, Tryon Investments. That's not even a covenants. And like I said, even if you were told that you were not in an HOA, you're in an HOA. Common areas are set out on the plat. We can circulate that plat eventually if everybody wants to see it. It's very, very clearly set out. You have easements on the edges of your community, like the fence and the big piers. You have easements over those that state these are HOA property. This is what the HOA has to maintain. The lakes are the HOA property, as is everything around it, and you have easements along your roads that you have to maintain. Protecting common areas, like I said, you need to make sure that you have liability insurance, but as long as you're maintaining them in an adequate manner, you're not going to be sued over those common areas. And if you are, you're going to have great defenses. So, steps to take to move forward. I think I might have gotten to that in a sort of a cursory way, but let me go a little bit more detail on steps to take to move forward. After we set ourselves up as an HOA, we're going to have a large meeting at which everybody in the HOA is going to try to be here, and we're going to elect a board pursuant to the declaration of the bylaws. That board is going to be in charge of almost everything at the HOA. Unlike things are working here, there are very few votes that are taken in an HOA. The board handles almost everything. There's like maybe 3 things that an HOA membership handles that the board doesn't explicitly handle. So you need to make sure that you elect board members who are conscientious and they're gonna make, take their job seriously, because they're gonna be the ones that run everything. It's very important that the board is open and transparent, but in the end, it all comes back down to the board. So after we elect the board and I are going to be in communication on how to set up procedure. There are going to be annual meetings that the HOA members come to and re-elect members of the board. We'll have a rolling board where one person falls off and is replaced and then another person falls off. But pretty much it's going to be mostly communication between me and the board. To the extent that a member has a question for me, then that's going to filter through the board, because it's best if I only communicate with one or two people as far as keeping costs down. That's really going to be the steps going forward. It's going to be a lot of work at the very beginning, but hopefully after these next few months, nobody's really going to need me that much unless something goes wrong. And if something goes wrong, like somebody's not paying their dues, somebody's not maintaining their house properly, that's when you call me, and that's when I begin the process with a demand letter, filing a lien on people's property, even filing a lawsuit if I have to. But that's usually when things go quite wrong. You have a very large association, like I said, so this is going to happen. But hopefully it's not going to happen on a very large scale. I think that's all I have to say, so I'm ready to take questions if y'all have anything to ask.
Ron, please, that's your
Doing a little research on my own, the heart of the thing, and part of the heart of it is the bylaws. Okay, the bylaws govern the board, the bylaws govern how things are voted on, the bylaws govern everything. You mentioned the bylaws. How are the bylaws going to be distributed to be viewed by folks and approved or voted on?
Do y'all have a website?
We
Not
don't.
per se.
We have social media, we have Facebook and Nextdoor, but not everyone is there.
Okay. Bylaws can be distributed like anything else. I mean, there's going to have to be some procedure by which the board gets notice out to the members. It could be mail, could be posting, could be social media, could be a website. Website I find is usually the best. That could be another upfront cost that can be very, very useful to you, is establishing a website where you can go and download these documents. But as far as establishing the bylaws, I have a set of bylaws that I generally use. I tweak them based on the community, and that's what I'm going to create. But I guess to describe bylaws, they are very, very rudimentary, and that's the way I like to keep them. Very simple, to where we have voting procedures, and that's it. I have clients that come in and they want to put all these different resolutions and way things are going to operate in the bylaws. I like to keep things simple because it makes sure the board operates more smoothly by just a simple vote. And that's the bylaws that I have. But the one thing you also need to know is that bylaws do not rule. They're not the controlling authority. The controlling authority is always the Alabama law. And the second controlling authority is the Declaration of Covenants. And we cannot write something in the bylaws that contradicts our covenants. So the covenants are going to be where everything comes back to.
I believe there was another one on this side first.
Yeah, I was Mike Coleman, 419 Summer Cove. Related to the bylaws, I think earlier you mentioned a streamlined process working with Adams Homes to set up the covenants and the bylaws correctly. And that's not going to be anything we see or vote on, but it's sometime down the road when we actually have an HOA and a board. Are any of those things that we would be able to change later, or
Yes.
are we stuck with them?
Okay. Basically, it's going to be my work, because Adams Homes, I think most of y'all should know that Adams Homes said that to the extent that they're going to create a new corporation and transfer everything over, they're just going to charge y'all. So the decision, I believe, was made that it would be better to have somebody that's looking out for your interest to do this. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. But after those bylaws are created, my bylaws state that the board can amend the bylaws. There are lots of different ways to do this, but I like this way the best. So after the bylaws are initiated, you can't change the covenants, or you can, but it's very, very hard, and I don't recommend it. You can change the bylaws at the vote of the board, but usually my bylaws are so simple, unless you're changing a core voting procedure, that the bylaws are going to stay pretty constant. But they are going to be absolutely viewable and changeable.
Third row on in.
Yeah, Jim Franson, 202 High Green. Question for you.
you have homeowners here, but you have people that are not here, and I don't mean the people that live in the homes, your phantom homeowners that rent the property out. How do you get in touch with them? And the people that are renting, what recourse do they have, and versus us with the people that rent?
Okay, this is a very standard question that arises in HOAs. You have the property owner that rents it out to somebody else. First of all, the renters are bound by the covenants in the same way that the owner is. However, the owner is also responsible for the behavior of the renters when the renters are in their house. We send notices to that home, and that is what we are required to do by law. If the owner doesn't get it, then that is the owner's fault. The owner needs to have some procedure when they're renting out their house that communications directed to the owner can get to them. Usually, though, my owners have another address that they get sent things to, and I usually, whenever I'm sending a demand out to an owner and a renter, I have 2 addresses and I send it to both. That's the way it should work, and that'll be up to y'all to figure out if you can find better addresses for these people. But the owner, in the end, is bound as well as the renter, so that's the way it works.
Okay, I'm 231 Crab Orchard, Charlotte Shelton. My question, and you may have answered it, I'm not sure, but with the group that we have here is a limited number. And there's what, how many houses in the subdivision?
250.
Yeah, 259.
259 at this
Right now.
So if once we become an HOA, how are we going to get so much % of vote that's required to pass something when we can't get the people here? How do you do that?
That's a critical issue. Sorry, is there clarification? But okay, I'll just say that's a critical issue in HOA governance. What is your current quorum in your declarations? I haven't read them yet.
51%.
51%, but I did the general rule for it, mine was 25%.
Okay, great. We might have to tweak your quorum, but like I said before, the homeowners themselves do not vote on much at all. They're going to vote on the board, election of the board, and usually once a year you can get a lot of people to a meeting as long as it's happening once a year. Y'all aren't going to be meeting nearly as frequently as you're meeting right now. But you can get a quorum, even if it's a pretty big quorum, to the meeting on electing the board. We can get that done. The only other things the homeowner is going to vote on are if there's an assessment raised over a certain amount, or if the the covenants are going to be amended, which is usually a very drastic situation. So we have quorum requirements, and every covenants are going to have those quorum requirements, and we have to meet them. And if we don't have a proper quorum in a meeting, which you got to count before you even start the meeting, you adjourn the meeting, start calling people, and try to get a quorum there, because business cannot be done without a quorum. Here's the best way around that to fix that problem. If you have a humongous quorum and 250 people, and you're never going to get 125 people in a room, proxy votes. If anybody's involved with a corporation, you know that you can submit proxy votes to vote in a corporation, where the board sends it out to all the homeowners, and the homeowner says, I vote this way on this issue and this way on this issue, provided they've gotten notice of that, and then mail it back in, and that person is counted as being present. So that's a great way to get your quorum. And that's going to be one of the procedures that we try to institute at the beginning of this.
Okay. I did a little research on my own, and from what I've researched on HOAs, read a lot of notes and a lot of discussion boards. The board is key. You're right. You're absolutely right. The board is key. And all the horror stories that I read about HOAs was boards out of control. For example, boards making decisions for capital expenditures on their own. Large capital expenditures, and then billing everyone because Nancy May decided she wanted a swimming pool in the neighborhood, and so got the rest of the board to go along, and they put in a $55,000 pool, and everybody got a bill, and not everybody wanted a pool. Those kind of things. So in the bylaws, my question would be, in your bylaws, are there, one, what we have now, and I appreciate all that these people have done, but we do not have a formally constituted board. We've got a group of folks who have volunteered their time, who've given generously of their time to put all this together and pull all this together. So that's why I asked about voting on the bylaws or what's in your bylaws. Simply because me personally, and I'll just speak for me, I would like to see in those bylaws some controls on capital expenditures by the board.
Okay. I've lived in that world, believe me. I've been on both sides of these debates. The worst abuses I see are when the declarant is in control of the board. That's when things get really nasty, and that's when the declarant starts doing things that hurt the homeowners. I don't see many times when a homeowner-appointed board is doing something that's absolutely problematic. But the controls do not exist in the bylaws, they exist in the covenants.
Okay.
That's where you look for your controls. Oftentimes, and this is just, there are only a few sets of covenants that float around Huntsville, and I mean, I know the people that draft all of them. Most of these covenants state that any loan taken out for more than $50,000 is going to have to require a membership vote, or any special assessment raised over a certain percentage of the general assessment requires a membership vote. Any raise of the general assessment over a certain percentage requires a membership vote. These are the types of things that are going to be very severely impact the member's life, and that's why we have to have membership votes for those things. But that's not in the bylaws. Bylaws are just procedural. All the real nuts and bolts of what govern your association, that's the covenants.
Okay.
Yes?
I'm Sean Bell, 236 Fair Orchard Drive. HOAs I've been in, most of the heat that I saw was generated by landscape restrictions, because these really affect the person, what they want to do. And what I want to know is if these so-called bylaws that you have a set of have restrictions on landscaping, and how restrictive are they? And can we get a view somehow of your bylaws and your restrictions?
I'll provide the exact same answer I just gave him. The nuts and bolts are in your covenants. Bylaws contain no restrictions regarding land use. The land use restrictions are too important to put in bylaws, and that's why people record them in the judge of probate's office so they're public record. If you want to look at your land use regulations, all you have to do is look at the section of your covenants that says use regulations. That's where it's all going to be. The bylaws cannot change that.
Where do those come from?
Those have been in existence since 2005. Those are the very first thing that gets filed before a developer creates the HOA, before the developer begins developing. He files those covenants, and it's probably a 50-page long document. I've taken a brief look at it, but that is where everything is. And nothing I do can change that, because all I'm here to do is set up the proper way of running the corporation. All the rules by which you're governed are already set in stone.
It seems like there are several different agreements for people in this community.
There aren't. And I can tell you that for absolute sure. Your agreement is not based on what you receive in your hands, it's based on where you live and what the plat
Is there a
says.
website I can see them?
Yes, you can. You can. They can be circulated by these folks, because we have copies, or you can get it from the public record as well. And I can give them the document number. You can look it up.
Thank you.
There was a little, yeah, right there.
We were told when we got our property that there were certain things that had to be done in order for anything to be added to your property. It had to be the same building material, it had to be done by, it couldn't be just plopped on there and like a prefab kind of thing. And I know from other experience and for this community that some people did what they wanted to do. And what happens now when those people knew they shouldn't have done it, but they did it anyway, and now we come in with this, is that going to do anything to past actions by people?
You're in a very common situation. This happens all the time. The rules are, in an architectural control committee, which you should establish as soon as possible, they're going to be the ones that determine whether or not a certain addition or alteration is in compliance with the covenants. From what I hear from Kathy, it looks like Adams Homes really wasn't regulating anything. They didn't do anything. The whole association just sort of went along its merry way. People built stuff. What your covenants will say about old construction that is out of compliance is that if it is not objected to by the HOA within, I believe it's usually 30 days, and that is waived. So old problems that are already built, can't do anything about it. Now what you gotta do, now that we're in charge of doing this right, is stay on top of it and make sure that we are sending somebody out to inspect. We can set up a process by which anybody who wants to build a gazebo in their backyard has to submit an application, and that application gets reviewed, and there's an appeal process. There are all sorts of different procedures we can institute to make things run properly. But unfortunately, unless there is an ongoing violation that can be remedied, like somebody's parking their junky car in the front yard, then that's against the covenants. You can fix that. But if somebody has built something onto their house, like a garage or a trellis that is in violation of the covenants, you're not going to be able to fix that if it's been sitting there for longer than 30 days.
Are there any more questions? Yes.
Can you tell us how the board members will be elected and for how long? Do you know that now? And if there's a board member that's doing things that the majority of the community doesn't like, is there any way to remove that board member?
Okay. First of all, it's going to be governed by your covenants. You can look at how the board is going to be elected. I haven't reviewed that myself. Normally what happens is y'all elect the board. And what you're going to do, this is often done wrong, so I'll try to get it right. You elect individual board members, and those board members from themselves determine who is going to be each office, president, vice president, secretary, and so forth. The members have the ability to call a special meeting as long as a certain percentage of them have signed on to this special meeting, at which they can remove a board member if they get a certain percentage of members behind that decision. So the members are always going to have the ability to remove a board member who is just delinquent or not there. The board can also remove a board member if the board member just stops showing up to meetings or is doing something that's repugnant. But members are always going to have final control, but you should know that it is a lot. You got to get a lot of members together to vote a board member out, and that's probably the way it should be.
Would the members aren't, would it be elected like a meeting like this is, or would the members who can't or choose not to attend the meeting be allowed a proxy?
We're going to call meetings pursuant to the bylaws, which is going to include proxies. It's going to be in a very specific manner. Notice is going to be given. The notice is going to say, here are the people running. This is what you have to vote on. There are very specific procedures the board has to do, but this is an informal meeting. It's being held in a very formal way, but we're going to hold formal corporate membership meetings every year to elect the board.
And everybody in the community would be required to be notified in
Yes.
that amount of time?
That's one of the very core requirements. You gotta get notice out. Doesn't necessarily have to go out via mail. It can go out via posting on a certain board. I don't know if y'all have anything that works like that. But yeah, notification is very important.
Within, I think, 14 days of the date,
Yeah.
something like that.
You were talking about the Alabama law trumps covenants. Who owns the streets in the community? The city? Or are they private? Are they public or are they private?
Those are public streets, but the regulation of the streets is, it's a question that goes, it depends on what you're asking.
Parking.
The parking on the streets is going to be regulated by your covenants as well as the city.
Well, it can't be both. The city says you can, and the covenant says you can't.
If the city says you can, and the covenant says you can't, you can't. If the covenant says you can, and the city says you can't, you can't.
Sorry.
So it's always going to default to a negative.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
If the city regulates something, the covenants don't regulate, you follow the city. The covenants regulate something the city doesn't regulate, you follow the covenants.
So then,
You have to comply with both.
Alabama law does not really trump covenants.
No, a non-regulated thing will not trump a regulated thing.
I think we were told that the county maintains the streets. Does anyone know if that's correct?
Located in the city.
If you're in this, it really depends. I don't work in administrative law. I don't know whether or not it's City of Madison or City of Huntsville that kind of maintains it. But, you know, there are certain things that the city is not going to allow the covenants to control, like speed limits, for example. But, you know, you always are going to go to both and figure it out. But I would really like to have a specific question, because I feel like we're beating around the bush about something.
1, 2, 3, Fourth Road, yeah.
I've got a kind of an off-the-wall question. You threw the thing up there about wetlands. Having had some, also some experience in working with ADEM.
Yeah, I have several of my associations.
Okay, how are they involved in wetland? And the pond is part of a wetland thing because they had to restore wetlands for wetlands they consumed in building of houses and all of that. So once you mention those magic words, ADEM comes rolling in. So Alabama Department of Environmental Management. And if you've never had the privilege of working with those lovely people, you just haven't lived.
Their influence on the HOAs that I've had with wetlands has been limited. I have not come into conflict with ADEM.
Okay.
All you got to do is you got to make sure you're following their regulations properly, because their regulations will trump, and they will tell you if you're not following them. That's pretty much all.
Have you read their regulations?
I have not. I don't do much regulatory.
I've had the privilege, and it's shall we say, it's not as joy of a whole.
Never are.
Basically, ADEM can come in, if they're mad at you, they can make you do all sorts of wonderful things. Folks just know with wetlands, we got those nice folks hanging out.
85 bar.
I just have a small question. Who maintains the grounds now? And how much is it, do they charge monthly? And is it something that we can ask around, somebody that would do it least expensive or do more or nicer job? Or
That's a, oh, you do know that answer? Okay.
Yeah, Adams Homes had told us that they were charged $1,300 a month from JTL Landscaping for the common areas, for the maintenance of the common areas. And that is just cutting, that's just, yes, and that's just cutting the common areas. That's not doing any landscaping whatsoever. That's not planting a bush.
If there's snow or it doesn't get cut or maintained in those months, they still get.
Well,
Yes.
Catherine, she said $1,300 a month for 6 months because it doesn't grow in the fall.
Right.
Okay, so 6 months, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Max Mitchell, who is also in the group, he was tasked to get some bids for us. And he got a bid from, I think it was Lawn Masters, and it was $6,000 for the year, and that was 33 cuttings. So that averages out to about, what, 180, 182 a service. So that wasn't bad.
Stephen, you had a question?
Yeah, I've got a question for you. How long do you think this process is going to take on your end to get us formed and get us moving forward?
Okay, the formation process, I mean, I can draft up the documents within the week. It just depends on how quickly Adams Homes can sign them. I've already been in contact with them, and they're ready to go. As far as the nuts and bolts of starting the HOA, I would expect these next 2 months to be pretty tumultuous. Okay. As far as people asking questions and not really knowing how to get things moving. But I'm going to be here on an as-needed basis. Basically, send me an email, give me a call, and over time, my involvement will taper down pretty substantially.
I got a question. So, typically, how many board members are in an HOA, and is there a process for us to get to know the proposed board members, where they lean? Is maybe one board member more conservative, one board, and conservative I mean with our money, not politically Republican.
This is going to be,
or one more liberal with our money. They have big aspirations for a clubhouse or pool. I mean, how do we know when we vote on those?
This is y'all's job. You've
Right.
got to establish a procedure by which people are going to talk, submit resumes, submit proposed positions. This is ultimately up to the members how they're going to handle this, because this is going to be handled at an early meeting. We can even have 2 meetings. Like I'm not sure if I'd recommend it, but you can have one meeting at which they introduce themselves and talk about what they're going to be like in office, and in the second meeting you vote. I'd recommend doing it at one meeting, but it's not going to be anything that I govern. This is going to be your responsibility to elect conscientious board members.
So they can't be elected, hopefully, without us being able to ask those type of questions, I guess. I guess it's
Nobody's going to be elected unless the members want to elect that.
And how many typically are on a board?
3 to 5. It depends entirely on what your covenants say.
Right. Okay.
Did yours 5?
No, I would go for 5. But
Yeah.
Your covenants are going to control that.
Okay.
to your left.
I'm sorry.
Have you ever worked with Adams Homes before, as far as dealing with them, with doing this kind of things?
I don't, well, not for sure. I don't work for developers usually. I have a couple of developers I represent, but I almost always represent individuals or homeowners. A lot of my HOAs are Adams Homes HOAs, so that's just something that usually I'm representing the HOA after the turnover period, because before the turnover period, Adams Homes controls.
Have you ever had to deal with something like this with Adams Homes?
Not with Adams Homes, but with other developers, absolutely.
Okay.
This is not uncommon. This time right now is the biggest heartburn your HOA is going to go through. This turnover period, it's always a nightmare, and getting the developer to give up control over what it's enjoyed for so long is difficult. And it's always like that. But I don't think Adams Homes is any worse or any better than any I've dealt with.
Okay, thank you.
And lady in the back, and then.
How will people be chosen to run for the board?
Can you please speak up?
How will people be chosen to run for the board?
That's once again up to y'all. Once the HOA is formed.
So when we're gonna, like you asked, how are we gonna choose for people to come or be elected to the board? We will hold a meeting similar to this, and the people will ask for nominations. I'll just do a general synopsis of that, I guess, which is you can recommend yourself, and if you get a second, then yes, you can come up, give your spiel, and then another person will nominate themselves or someone else, and so forth. And then those people will explain their qualifications, what their views are, and then at the end of everyone's, we'll say, we want to vote in this person for president. These people are here, and then everyone will vote, say, person A. Everyone who wants to vote for them, they vote for them, and then who votes for person B, everyone raises their hands, and abstentions and so forth. It's a simple process, but it will be done in a meeting like this. And then there will be proxy votes and so forth. Correct.
Maybe tweaks.
Yeah, there will be tweaks. I'm just giving you a general.
I'll help y'all with the tweaks and make it work properly. But there will be a nomination process and there will be voting.
And it will be that gentleman next.
Yes.
Front row, and then we'll come back.
I'm Frank Bell, 621 Summer Cove. But anyway, I wanted to know, you mentioned something earlier about normally associations would start collecting fees prior to what we've been doing thus far. Is there a reason why? Is the possibility that it's going to be to our disadvantage by not paying those association fees upon the closing of our homes as opposed to starting now?
Well, can you clarify that last sentence?
Well, you mentioned that most associations only collect association fees before now.
Yeah.
But several homeowners have been here for like several years and have paid not one dime on association fees. So is there any rationale behind that?
The rationale behind that was negligence, probably on Adams. So yeah, I don't know any HOA that forgets to charge money. That's not something that people in business normally do. But y'all have a decision that y'all have to make as far as how you treat that. And this is going to be a decision that's ultimately left up to the board. So that's going to be one of the questions that y'all are going to want to ask your prospective board members. One, whether you want to waive some or all of those fees. Or two, whether you want to treat those fees as if they have been assessed and charge them to the homeowners. Now, of course, that's a pretty big deal for your pocketbook, so that's going to be, but also in the interest of having an HOA that runs properly, y'all need startup money. And you might not have to have a special assessment if you treat those fees, or at least some of them, as not waived. Big conversation that needs to happen as far as that's concerned.
There's another problem that we purchase our homes at different times, and then there are different amounts that are due. So
y'all going to have to go back and look and figure out who owes what. Or you can just say, we're going to start with a clean slate and we're going to make this special assessment and move it forward. This is the decision that's going to be pretty insular in determining who's going to be a board member. But, and let me say, on a similar note, I don't think I told you this before. Something that you really, really need to do is you need to set up a reserve fund. A reserve fund for emergencies. A lot of HOAs forget to do this, and there's disaster at the end of that. So when something goes very, very wrong, you don't have a lot of things that can go wrong here, but I still recommend setting up a reserve fund, and y'all need to talk about how much you think that reserve fund needs to be. And who am I going to?
Well, you're gonna go to Linda and then the lady there, and then you, and then you're.
My name is Linda Lee, and you'll be happy to know I want to thank him. He is an excellent lawyer, from what I can tell. I've lived in homeowner associations since the 70s, and I thoroughly endorse you.
Miss, with your hand up. Yeah.
Is it my turn?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. My question is when you have this homeowners association, is it gonna be a pick of people? I'm talking about everybody. It's not you, but are you gonna give other people a chance to, I mean, to represent the community, not just like some.
Y'all have to nominate anybody.
Okay, then I have another question. What this gentleman over here talking about money? Okay, you saying people that been here ever since this place was built. Although Adams Home was in charge of that, you said they can go back and collect that money from us? Is that what you're saying?
The HOA has the ability to do that.
Huh?
The HOA as an entity has the right to collect all assessments that have not been collected in the past. Now, that's the HOA. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting the HOA out of Adams Home's hands and into y'all's hands so y'all can make that decision for yourselves.
Well, my thing is this, if we're not we just concerned citizens, and it wasn't whatever it is, HOA, why do we have to go back and pay? Because it wasn't an HOA.
It was. That's the answer, and I understand you people are here for not in the representative status of the HOA. Adams Home still has full control. That HOA wasn't filed properly with the state. That does not mean it doesn't exist. It exists in a dumb form that I wouldn't recommend, but it does exist. So you owe the money at this point in time to Adams Homes. So what we want to do is we want to get it out of Adams Homes.
Check.
That's what it said. It said when every lot was sold.
Is
the
turnover period. You're talking about the turnover period.
Listen up.
Yeah.
The turnover period can be in 3 circumstances. 1, once every lot is sold. 2, once a certain period of time has passed. 3, once Adams Homes gives it up. And I do not think from my conversations with these folks that every lot has been sold. And I know that August is when the time period expires. Yes. So what we're going to be doing is we're trying to get option 3, which as far as I know is going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you said it and we discussed it last week, but as I said, I'm the type of person, I need to see it in black and white. I don't see it in black and white.
It's in the declarations.
It's in the covenants.
And it does say that. In the
covenant.
Yeah.
And you didn't show me last week either, because you didn't see it in mine. So I'm just saying, I mean, I'm not being confrontational, I'm just saying, I want to see it in black and white.
You got a question, a legal question.
Yeah.
Give it to them, they'll give it to me, I'll make an answer.
Miss with your hand up, and then Charlotte.
Yes, ma'am.
While this transition is going on, Adams Homes is still gonna be responsible for like at least cutting the grass, right? Or are we already gonna be in charge of all of that as of?
Once the transition happens, you're in charge until that document is signed, they're in charge.
Okay.
Charlotte.
Okay, back to her question about the money. I know Adams Home said something about prorating. Now, how long would you say you thought that this would take till it's turned over, actually over, and we have?
I mean, depending on how quick Adams Homes moves, I would anticipate turnover to happen within a month. At which point you would set a special meeting next month. That's
okay. And one of the things Adams Homes suggested, for all that's worth, is that that there would be a prorated fee for the first year. And then we would have the full fee for the, come October, we'd have to pay the $150, or at least that's what my contract says. So what is your take on that?
Like I said before, prorated fees, they can get a little bit messy and hard to compute. Honestly, I think it'd be smarter just to have a special assessment at the very beginning where this is how much we think we need, not anything based on a certain period of time. Like, we need this amount of money to get this process started and get a little bit of a reserve. When October rolls around, we'll get the regular assessments. That's what I recommend, but once again, that is a substantive decision that is up to you. Go ahead, sir.
Robert Schulman, I just want to be clear what this guy started out talking about. Once we take over the HOA and board members are elected, they can come after us for past fees.
Yes.
Now, what would be the rate for those? Was that decided? Is that in the...
In the covenants, it sets at a yearly fee of $150.
Okay, so if I've been here 3 years, once that's happened, they can come and send me a bill for $450.
Correct.
They'd stir up a hornet's nest, but they couldn't do it.
It would be crazy, but I mean, I'm just saying, there are a lot of ways to make people angry, and that's one of them.
That's not before they give that place up, at least the darn fence on the road.
So you say things need to be fixed?
The fence on Harbin, it's post is down, it looks thin. Is there any way to get them to do their job?
He's asking, can
Adams Homes. And let me tell you, Adams Homes has already communicated to these folks that they are, they're going to pass all costs at this point to the homeowners association. Because Adams Homes isn't responsible. The HOA is responsible. So what's going to happen when Adams Homes takes out a $5,000 loan in the name of the HOA to fix that fence? You're going to end up paying for it anyways. So what they can take out money in the name of the HOA that you will eventually be responsible for, which is why I think the smartest thing to do is to just get control and then find a way to get the money we need to fix what needs to be fixed.
Miss in the back in the red in the booth. Miss in the back of the booth in the red. She did it. No longer. Okay. Is that it for the questions? All right. That ends the Q&A session. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stephen has a few quick words before we actually dismiss.
No.
I'd like to.
Okay.
Okay, first off, to the group that started this, and I suppose it's still standing in maybe a couple cities, I'm not sure. But I make a motion that until, and I don't think this has been said. I don't think this has been said, so I think we need a motion at this point, legally, to have this board, these people that volunteer, to continue their job until we vote for the HOA president, whoever else that we have to vote for.
Don't call them a board, call them
A committee. A volunteer committee.
Okay, so
Okay, I make that motion.
do you want me to rephrase that?
No. Okay, we have to say
So,
I second.
okay. Well, let me rephrase the motion into you would like the current people who are working, I'm assuming up here on everything, to be a committee or a delegation for the community.
Yes, for the continuity of communication with the lawyer and doing the job that you're doing now, if you would still continue.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Keep your hands up.
Only one per household, so no double voting. got 52.
All right, all opposed? Abstentions?
I've got 4. I don't see anybody
You
else.
don't want to vote, and if it comes into legal proceedings, it can change majority. I'm just answering. It's a side question. It's not.
An abstention is if you don't want to vote, you're not voting yes or no.
You're just abstaining from the vote, which changes the majority rule of the vote. So that motion passes if you guys accept it.
I do.
All right. And then I'll take this one question real quick.
Motion to adjourn?
I can't do that because, I'm sorry, I can't follow that motion because the agenda still has a few more items on it, and then you can make motion to adjourn.
I'm Steven Spraberry. I was here the other night. I live at 233 Travel, which is just for everybody's record. As y'all know, we have no money. The money's been put up for the attorney. That's taken care of. But as far as all of the mailings and everything that has gone on so far, and the delivery of letters and other postings, it's pretty much fallen on a couple of individual people that have used their own resources to put those letters out. There's going to be more mailings that are going to need to come out within the next month, hopefully when we are formed, about getting the association together and actually voting on a board. And there's going to be other administrative costs that are going to need to be taken care of, so it's not solely falling on a few individuals in the community. What we're asking for is going to be donations. Nobody's just being assessed anything. If you feel that you would like to help these people out that are, putting up their own paper, their own printers, and stuff like that, we've got a receipt book. We're going to open up an account that's going to be a temporary account until the Homeowners Association has an official account. It's going to require 2 signatures. We're going to document everything as far as receipts, and we will post all that back to the association so there will be clarity on what that money is being spent on. We have a receipt book, so if anybody would like to donate any money for those administrative costs, please see us after the meeting and we will get that taken care of. And we thank y'all in advance. You have a
Question for you.
For me. Okay.
For the individuals that may want to contribute the money or a little bit, whatever they can, to the person that did donate $2,000, who would receive?
You'll need to see Kathy about that. The person that donated the money wants to remain anonymous.
That's good.
But if there are other people that would like to contribute to the lawyer fund or to help offset some of that money that the anonymous donor did donate, you can see Kathy, and we'll be glad to work out a process to get whatever money you want to donate for the lawyer to offset the initial money that was put up. Yes, sir.
What about those individuals who would like to donate their time?
That's fine.
More than welcome. More than welcome. There's a group of about 8 or 10 of us that got together and did all the research for this. And if anybody else wants to help, we will take all the help that we can get. You can see any of us up here, we'll be glad to take down your information and we will get you involved in this process until we get the Homeowners Association handed over to us.
There was about 6 or 8 of you that volunteered, that delivered letters and everything the last time. That was greatly appreciated. So you have to volunteer.
Yes, thank you.
I know I didn't bring another lady on that snow and ice.
And also some of that administrative funds that we're asking for donation are going to go towards actually officially mailing out correspondence instead of having to have them hand delivered. We can put a stamp on them and put them, in the mail. Because as it stands right now, we are not allowed to stick anything in anybody's mailbox. It's federal rule, you can't stick anything in a mailbox. So we've had people going around door to door. What we'd like to get to, especially for the next meeting that's going to require votes, is being able to actually officially mail stuff to each resident. And that's going to require stamps, require envelopes and all that other stuff. And that's why we're asking for donations for the administrative costs. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so as far as I'm aware, nothing has come out changing the original letter we received from Adams Homes stating we're going to be assessed this fee starting in March. Have they communicated to anyone that they're no longer going to pursue that, or is that still?
That's gonna go through the lawyer, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. Adam will take care of all that. As it stands right now, we're under the impression that all that has been put on hold, and that will be discussed lawyer to lawyer through those corporations. Any other questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
Someone mentioned the $6,000 for the landscaping. Do you know if that was included in that original $150 that they told us?
I don't. Once the board is formed and we have control of the HOA, whoever the board is, they will go out and make, get estimates from several different companies on the landscaping.
So it's subject to change?
Yes, that will be subject to a board decision once we are fully formed. Any other questions for me? Thank you.
That's it?
Would you like to make the same motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?